Good morning, BICSI. Good morning, BICSI. Thank you very much. Wow, what a great group. Thank you for getting here bright and early. I want to start by introducing you to some visionaries, some really important people, people that today's session is all about. So would you join me in welcoming them? Stand up for me. Stand up. I want to show you what a visionary looks like. This is very important, so pay attention. I want you to look to your left, look to your right, look behind you. Find someone, lock eyes. Lock eyes. Got him? Now give him a big hug. Give him a big hug. Come on, do it. Do it. No kissing on the lips. Hugs are sufficient. You may sit down. That is what a visionary looks like. You're the ones building the future, not me. Today is all about you, and what I want to try to help you do in the few minutes that I have to share with you is to understand how you build a lens to look at that future. Because the challenge we all face is that the lens we're given, that we grow up with, it gets cloudy over time. And as it gets cloudy, it becomes really tough to see the future. But it's not about predicting it. Right? It's not about predicting it. It's about surviving it. So I want to help you to survive the future, help you better understand how you can build a future that you and your organizations can survive. So how do you begin? That's a pretty ambitious thing to do, right? How do you begin that? Well, let me share with you a bit about my lens and how it was formed a long time ago. I actually began my career wanting to be an engineer, and I wanted to be a civil engineer because I grew up in a household with my dad being a big-time engineer. He did some incredible things over the course of his life, and I wanted to be like Dad. I wanted to be an engineer. So I applied, of all things, to his alma mater, and I got accepted, which was absolutely amazing to me. I wasn't a great student in high school, and I was so proud. I went right to my father, and I said, Dad, you're not going to believe this? Look at this acceptance letter. I got accepted to your alma mater. And he said, that's great, Tom. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to be an engineer. And he looked at me. He said, what kind of engineer? I said, civil. Civil. Because my father was an electrical engineer. And he built small things. So I was going to build big things. And he looked at me with that wonderful, passionate gaze that fathers often have. And he said, Tom, if you built a bridge, it would be a beautiful bridge. I just wouldn't want to cross it. I thought, okay, thank you for those wonderful words of advice, Dad. I'm going to go to the orientation with my engineering friends, and I'm going to tell you what it's like to be an engineer, a civil engineer. So I went to the orientation, big school, right? So there were about 2,000 of us there, and I went with my best friend at the time, Sal, and we were seated in this huge auditorium, and at one point, the dean of the engineering school got up. And he started looking at us, and he started on this rant. And as he was ranting at one point, he stopped and he said, look at what you're sitting on. What is it? And Sal and I looked at it, and we thought, Sal, it's a chair. Yeah, that's what it is. And in this very stern, curmudgeonly old voice, he grabbed the chair and he said, as an engineer, you don't see a chair when you look at this. What you see are 4 vectors of force. And I thought, shit, Dad was right. Because I don't want to see vectors of force. I don't want to go through my life looking at stuff and seeing vectors. I want to see the beauty in the world. I want to build beautiful things. And it took me a long time to finally get it. To get the fact that what this guy was telling us was that as an engineer, you have a lens. And that lens, the lens that you have, because that's what this is all about. It's about that lens. That lens shapes the way that you see and you build the future. And it is tough to keep that lens crystal clear. It just doesn't happen. It's not an easy thing to do. It just isn't. And I'm going to show you, hopefully, some ways that you can adopt a lens that'll make it easier to understand these game changers, things that are being thrust upon us that we don't have much choice over, but that we have to deal with anyway, and how you can build a future that's survivable as a result. Pretty ambitious discussion, right? So let me ask you at the outset, just to kind of get a level set, how many of you believe this statement? How many of you believe that everything that can be invented has been invented? Anyone? Raise your hand. A few of you do. And you know what? It's interesting because this is sort of the pinnacle of human arrogance, isn't it? We always put ourselves at that point in time where all the great stuff has been created. You know, as a kid growing up, my biggest fear was all the neat stuff had been done. I wouldn't be able to invent anything new because all the inventions had already occurred. And we always put ourselves at the pinnacle of arrogance. I'll tell you who said this at the very end of the presentation. But it's a theme that, whether we admit it or not, we tend to believe. So another question for you, simple one. I want you to think of a word, one word, that defines the steepest possible J-curve you can think of. A curve that has really resulted in all the progress over the last 200 years. One word. What would that word be? Yell it out. What would that word be? Innovation. Innovation. Great word. Absolutely. What else? Challenge. Challenge. Absolutely. Give me another one. Hope. What else? Vision. Let me ask the question a little differently and see if you can keep up with me here. What if that same word was going to define the way in which we would survive the future, how we would build all the things moving forward that will help us as organizations, as people, as a society, as a global community? Any new words come to mind? Imagination, fear, fear, uncertainty, purpose, perseverance. You know what? That word is what you do. The word I'm thinking of is what you do as an organization, as individuals. This is your job. The word I'm thinking of is connections. It is our ability to connect that differentiates us from any other civilization in the history of mankind. You know, I had relatives, I think I did anyway, at the foot of the Parthenon who sat and thought great thoughts, right? They invented democracy. Last great thing the Greeks did, given the current state of the Greek economy, more than likely. But they thought great thoughts, and they thought to themselves, we are at the pinnacle of mankind's existence. What they didn't have was the connections, which is what you create. The foundation, the cornerstone for all progress, for all challenge, for every solution we've built or we're going to build to survive the future.